Oh, hello. So today's video is going to be a rundown of all the other previews from Warhammer Fest, plus some thoughts about Games Workshop's big new direction. Now I know that you've seen most of this stuff already. It's up on Warcom, it's up on Twitch, so this is more about giving my kind of thoughts, my feelings about the reveals, and like I say, there's some shower thoughty type content at the very end. So obviously, Warhammer 40,000 Leviathan is the big centre stage golden ticket reveal that we've had at Warhammer Fest. So it's the 40k launch box. I quite like the Space Marine half, and Mrs. T quite likes the Tyranid half. So we're probably picking up a Leviathan, if able, right? Apparently it's only going to be £150 as well, which is pretty good. Now, neither of us plan to start 10th edition with these teams. I'm going to start with my sisters, and Mrs. T is going to start with Wordbearers, but my sort of second army is Black Templars, so I'm sure some of these guys will find a home in a Black Templar army. And Mrs. T used our Tyranid army, she sold most of it, so she's kind of interested in starting Tyranids again. So it'll be one of those things where we pick it up, take out the rulebook and the cards. The miniature's probably going to sit around for a little while until we want to get to them, but it's going to be a really good value set, and I like almost everything in the Space Marine half. I'm not that fussed on the Librarian because I play Black Templars, but I've already arranged to sell that off to somebody else. And I'm not sure I want the Rifleman type Dreadnought. I really want one of those combat Dreadnoughts that's currently locked in that other box with those silly rocket guys. But maybe if the rules are good, I'll find a way to include one in my force. One thing that's quite interesting about this box is that both the sides, there will be rules for making a combat patrol for Marines or Tyranids out of what's in this box. Presumably that's going to be in addition to the combat patrol that already exists for Marines. I don't know if they're going to stop selling that one. One part of 40k that I'm really interested to see more detail on is combat patrol. I really want to see... Well, I really want to be able to start building up my combat patrol and start thinking about how to play with it, because for our first couple of games we're going to play combat patrol. I've been, for those of you that joined the hobby streams on Tuesday, I'm currently painting a Penitent engine because that's in the Sisters of Battle combat patrol. So yeah, we will see how that goes. The rulebook in Leviathan is special, so it's like the biggest, fullest, most impractical version of the rulebook. It's the giant coffee table peruse at your leisure rulebook. It's got the Crusade rules in it, which are later going to be available as a separate publication. It's got the core rules in it, which are going to be a free download later on. It's got the combat patrol rules, which I think will be published somewhere else later on. And it's got the, the hobby section, the lore, the pictures, everything else. So, not something that you want multiple copies of. Like, myself and Mrs. T will get one copy of this and have it on the shelf, and then we'll probably use the free downloadable version or the inevitable, like, slimline paper rulebook that comes out in a starter set for us if we need a second copy of the book. You also get a copy of the cards that you're going to need to generate the match play games. It seems to me, from what I've looked at, you only need one set of the cards per game, so we don't need to track down another deck straight away, although we will probably want our own decks. Eventually you don't want to be travelling up for a game and then both start playing and then realise that between two games you've only got one set of the cards. So, but it does look like you only need one set of cards per table, which is great. So Leviathan, I think it's going to be similar to Indomitus, isn't it? It's a lot of miniatures. They're all brand new miniatures at the price of $150. With the rulebook and the cards as well. Like it's going to be such a good deal if you care about either of the sides. It's going to be the best way to start the game. That being said, if you really don't care about Space Marines or Tyranids, I bet there'll be a few cheap Leviathan rulebooks on eBay, at least at first, because certainly when the last edition of Age of Sigmar launched, neither of us cared for the models in that box, but the cheapest way of buying the rulebook was actually to get the one from the box with the special cover, it's funny the way things work out sometimes. So bits of this will probably appear on eBay as well, parceled out as separates if you're after specific little bits. I expect you'll see a lot of Tyranids on eBay for a while going into the future, in the same way that you see a lot of Necrons hanging around on eBay at the moment. But I think it's going to be a great release. I think it's a great price point. I think it's got a lot of really great miniatures in. and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for 10th edition. I'm excited for the rules, and having played a demo game at Warhammer Fest, yeah, I think it's going to be really enjoyable, and hopefully I'll talk about it on the channel some more as well once it comes out. So they also showed in the Twitch stream this slide, which I thought was pretty interesting, which shows all of the set index cards that are going to be available on launch as well. So these are all the different armies. There are some interesting things here. So first of all, you don't need to buy these at all. There's going to be digital versions in stock for free online. But of course, having the little printed card in front of you is going to be really very helpful. There's one for nearly every codex that you could think of. I did notice with some interest that Knight Households, you can see down here there's the Chaos and the Imperial Knight symbol. So Knight Households are consolidated into one pack. I think that's the only bit of weirdness. The other one is, of course, there's an Imperial Agents deck. Now, for those of you coming from Kill Team, that's where you're going to find apparently the 40k rules for a lot of the Stranger Imperial teams. So the Arbites, the Navy Breachers, the Star Striders, etc. So I'll be looking to pick up the Sisters cards, and the Imperial Agents cards, and Helen will be looking to pick up the Chaos Space Marine cards, and then between us we'll probably spring for the Knight Household cards as well. And that should be, because it's really only Imperial Agents and Knight Households, as far as I can see, that you can use as allies. So those 4 decks between us should everything we absolutely need to play with those 2 armies. Maybe Helen will need the Demons deck as well. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. The nice thing is that you'll be able to look at these online first of all and work out what it is that you need to buy. Hopefully these stay. The bit that worries me is that these are cards, and Games Workshop has a really bad reputation for keeping cards in stock, and with them being available for free online, I worry that the physical version will be like a one and done splash release. So then it's like, well, do I want to pick up the Black Templars cards and the Astra Minotaurum cards, because I might get around to playing those armies one day and I don't want the cards to disappear? Don't know. It depends on the price point. They did say these were going to be inexpensive as well. Hopefully they can keep them in stock and then fade things out as people's codexes appear. But maybe that's not going to be the case. Maybe you'll have to scramble to buy them on day one. I'm not quite sure. Speaking of codexes, we've got Codex Roadmap. So this is the first of a lot of roadmaps we're going to look at today. So we can see that in the summer here, we're going to get the core book box for Leviathan, the core book as well, the Crusade book. So remember, the rulebook in Leviathan has both these things in together. You'll be able to buy a separate mission deck as well as the index cards. And then in autumn, we're going to see a codex for Marines and Tyranids. In the winter, we're going to see a codex for Necrons and Mechanicum. And in the spring, we're going to see a codex for Dark Angels, Orcs, Custodes, Tau, and Chaos Space Marines. They did also say that each of these codex releases will be accompanied by at least, some miniatures. So all these things will be getting miniatures. It'll be interesting, and we'll look at this right at the end, whether we can pull any thoughts about Kill Team Season 3 from what... Because we know sometimes there's a little bit of crossover between what's kind of coming for 40k, and then maybe there's an extra data sheet that comes out for Kill Team, so we'll have a look at that a bit later on as well. It's interesting. I think it's really good of them. People will know if they're buying these index cards, what's the shelf life going to be. Certainly, if I'm playing Tyranids or Chaos, or regular Space Marines, sorry, I'm going to want to make do probably with the free online versions rather than buy some cards that will be out of date within a month. And it's nice of them to have told people that. Like, yeah, you can buy these cards, but they're going to be out of date in a month. Be interesting to see what codexes look like, how important it is to carry the codex around, whether the codex comes with a card. When the codexes come out, is there going to be like an updated card pack that you can buy, so you can still... Because the cards are really cool, so when the codex comes out, is it going to come with the option to buy cards for the datasheets, or are you going to then have to revert back to using the datasheets out the codex? Not sure. Right, that's it for 40k. So we're going to go on to the secondary games other than Kill Team, right? And I think it's a really important thing for Kill Teamers like us to realise that Kill Team was really lucky to get parceled out into its own review seminar on the final day. Some of these other games were kind of all bundled together. So we've got the a warband here for Weird Hollow, Warhammer Underworlds, the Headsmans Curse. It is a... not Soulblight Gravelords, they're the ones that I like. It is a Nighthawk warband, right? 4 miniatures. I quite like Death, but these particular models don't do very much for me. They don't look, especially this guy, doesn't look different from like a very generic like Chain Rasp. I don't know enough about Underworld to talk about the cards and the rules and how they're going. But I think somebody must play Underworlds. They keep releasing loads of stuff for it, but it just you never see much in the way of content for Underworlds. I'm told you can also use these in Age of Sigmar as a unit if they're any good. A little unit of 4, they probably won't be that good, but it is an option. So Underworld's also got a roadmap. This is a little bit more vague than the 40k one, so they're being a little bit more coy. They're saying, oh, well, there's a new Chaos Warband, or there's a new Destruction Warband, or there's going to be a new core box. I kind of want to play Underworlds. Like, I started playing Underworlds when the first one came out. I'm like, yeah, this is a really cool game. This is going to be my game. Painted up a couple of different warbands for Underworlds originally. And then it just got away from me with the cards. I know they're trying to make it easier now with the Rivals decks. You can just buy a deck to go with your warband and play it that way. And actually, I have a copy of Gnarlwood just sitting up on the shelf because I quite like the the skeletons that came in Gnarlwood, and I should really get them up and get them built and have a go with their cards, right? And then Mrs. T.I., I don't think she ever bought it. Maybe she did. There's like a Lizardmen Underworld's warband as well, and we could play that way. But it's just it's Underworlds is a lot of headspace. I feel more so than any other game. Like Underworlds, I feel is a very deep game, and it has very shallow hobby, right? And I love hobby, and I don't have a lot of to play every Games Workshop game and to know everything I'd want to know about them all. I think would take up a lot of headspace. But I was really impressed with Underworld when I started playing it. Like, it's just the card collection aspect got away from me after a while. All right, and I figure you can't play all these games competitively. Like, I play Kill Team, and I don't play Kill Team competitively well, but Kill Team's the game I would go to events for. You know, if you think about the Warhammer Fest, right? Like, which one are you going to sign up for? You can only have one main game system. And I feel like Underworld's kind of actively doesn't want you to play it casually, is kind of my feeling. It's designed to be a more competitive game. But it's a fun game. About Middle-earth. So they were very clear to say that they wanted to announce loads of stuff for Middle-earth, and they weren't allowed to. I think there's some complex rights things going on here involving Amazon. Major Tom on the Discord is always trying to explain to me that Middle-earth is dead because something to do with the Rings of Power and a license being granted to another company. But then that was all like linked to the real uptick in Games Workshop producing a lot more stuff. So I think there must be some legal wrangling going on behind the scenes that no one really knows what's happening. So they said they wanted to say things, but they couldn't, and they wanted to show things, but they couldn't. But they did show this, which is cool enough as a diorama piece. If you want to buy something to build and paint and put on your desk because you love Lord of the Rings, this might be your thing. It is in Forge World resin. It's just a bit of a weird release. You can apparently take the ring wraith off and use it as an individual ring wraith in your games of Middle-earth, so that's pretty cool. I've never actually played Middle-earth. I have, in theory, an Isengard army, most of which is actually painted. Like, it was one of those things we picked up during lockdown. We binge-watched all of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films again, and I was like, yeah, let's do Lord of the Rings. I've got Isengard, I've got loads of Uruk-hais, and I've got the Saruman set, and then we just never got around to playing the game. But again, I'm told by people who like Middle-earth, it's probably the best game that Games Workshop have ever made. Like, I think that's Kill Team, but if you want to tell me that it's Middle-earth, I should give it a go one of these days. I really should. But some of the miniatures are really old and hard. You know, you look through it and you're like, oh, I like this faction, and like I like the Uruk-hai. I mean, they're really old as balls, but at least they're quite cheaply available. My wife decided she wanted to do Rivendell Elves, which just isn't really a thing. So it's one of those ranges where it's nebulously available. Warcry Nightmare Quest. So this actually went on, because I've taken so long to get through everything from Warhammer Fest, this actually went on pre-order preview yesterday, so this will be on pre-order on Saturday. This was also leaked a fair old while ago by Lee, over on Tabletop Skirmish Games. So if you don't watch his channel, go and find, there's a video about Warcry leaks that has this temple on its thumbnail kind of blurred out. Warcry is another game that I kind of want to play and never get round to. there was a point when the new season of Warcry first released when I was kind of gung-ho for it to become the first, the sort of the second big game on the channel. But I haven't really liked any of the bespoke teams for Warcry this season at all. I haven't liked the setting. I haven't liked the weird trees with hands. I could play out of the Compendium versus, Mrs. T.I. likes the Hunters of Hunche, the Lizard Men again, right? And we could play with my death, but I'm told that, Compendium teams in Warcry are actually really overpowered, and it's the bespoke teams that are slightly underpowered, so you're best off playing bespoke versus bespoke or Compendium versus Compendium. That's what I hear anyway. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. This is now the end, so I'll move on. This is now the end of this season of Warcry Nightmare Quest. So in the autumn, we're going to get, the start of a new season, right? And so there's going to be a box. The box will be Order versus Destruction. And then in the winter, there's going to be another box. It's going to be Order versus Death. That's pretty cool. We're also getting a starter set in the summer. So the starter set's already been spoiled, again, by Lee over on Tabletop Skirmish Games. It's called Crypt of Blood. And it uses the really cool Underworld's vampires versus the Underworld Stormcasts, the ones that have a bird. I can't remember their name. So that's pretty cool. I do like me some vampires, and I already have those models. So if their rules are like, even though they're in a starter set, if they have like normal rules for Warcry, I might play a few games of Warcry. I could see it happening. They did say, which was interesting, that the third season you'll see there's no Chaos Warbands on here so far. Like, they focused almost exclusively on Chaos in Season 1 of Warcry, so they want to move around and let the other Grand Alliances get to the point where they're as fleshed out as the Chaos are, at least for a while. It's funny, because when Warcry first launched, the whole idea was supposed to be that it was going to be Chaos Warbands versus Chaos Warbands, a sort of alternate setting, a bit like Necromunda, and then they were like, oh, well, you can bring in your other stuff from Age of Sigmar if you want, and that proved so popular, that's what people really want to do, so now they're making it, I think, more like Kill Team, in that they're going to have representatives from each main army, although some of the things will be a bit more weird, but they're going to have representatives from each of the Grand Alliances, certainly, and not just Chaos guys. Right, we're going to look at Cities of Sigmar. Okay, so that brings us on to, we've kind of gone through the minor boxed games there. That brings us on to Cities of Sigmar. So I really love these. I think these are really awesome models. I can't justify a second Age of Sigmar army. It's a game I never play. I've got a massive Soulblight Gravelords army as it is. But I really like these. It seems a little weird to me that these are coming out around the same time as the Warhammer the Old World, because it feels like they're fishing in the same pool. These look very Warhammer. Like, these don't look Age of Sigmar to me. These look very Warhammer to me. I could see them coming out. If these were miniatures for the Old World, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Right? I could see these coming out for that system. I think they look really, really cool. But I just can't justify getting them for any purpose. But they're really awesome. I mean, look at the heavy. It's just the Imperial Heavy Cavalry, but updated and improved. I really like them. Really, really do. Really amazing horses. And then we've got the Dawnbringers narrative campaign. So I think this is a 4-book narrative campaign. They said it's the story of 2 crusades. One will succeed and one will fail, and you don't know which is which as you read the lore. I think this means we're building toward the end of Age of Sigmar, right? And the new edition of Age of Sigmar, because they did this before. Is that right? Are we coming up for? Are we come to the end of the second year? Have we got one more year of Age of Sigmar, and then Warhammer Fest 2024 is going to be the next edition of Age of Sigmar? Is that right? I'm not sure. I should do the maths before I hit record, but there you go. So it sounds like there's going to be 4 books. Each book has 4 characters, and each character will be from one of the 4 Grand Alliances. So they've shown off the cover of the first book and the first 4 characters that are coming along alongside the first book. You've got this goblin guy with flying squigs. He's pretty cool. You've got a slayer with 2 hammers. He looks pretty generic. You've got this kind of overwrought zombie undead guy who doesn't do much for me, actually. I like undead, but not so much these ghouls, okay? And this Nurgle guy who's just really nice. Like, I have no reason at all to collect a Maggotkin of Nurgle miniature, right? But this miniature is lovely. I love this head as well with the chain kind of veil. That's really amazing. Yeah. It looks sadly that at least for a while these models are going to be locked into boxes with a pile of existing kits. So they've made 4 regiments of renown, each led by one of these characters, and they've shown them off on the GW website as having like, oh, it's a box with a character in. So it looks like these characters aren't going to be available separately, at least not at first. So if you really want them, you'll have to buy a box of, you know, a load of miniatures to go along with them, like a combat patrol size thing, right? Little bit sad. They also showed off the Iron Jaws Maw Grunter. Apparently this is massive, so it's bigger than a Stegodon, so it's a very massive, massive kit. It has multiple options, so you can build it in a couple of different ways, and it's coming alongside the second Dawnbringers book, which begs the question, are they going to do like 4 big monsters for each of the 4 Grand Alliances alongside this second book? That would be pretty cool if in the first book we got 4 heroes, in the second book we're going to get 4 monsters. That would be pretty rad, right? So we got a roadmap from Age of Sigmar as well. This is a little bit vague. You can see that you've got the 4 Dawnbringers books, so book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. They said book 2 is going to have a fair old destruction focus, hence the kind of destruction glyph on there. We've got the Seraphon Army book, the Cities of Sigmar Army book, and in the winter a Mystery Army book. And then in the summer we're expecting a General's Handbook as well. So a little more vague than the 40k one, you know, Mystery Army books and all that stuff, but it seems a bit light as well for Age of Sigmar. I'm sure if I was more into Age of Sigmar, I would know intuitively what this was likely to be because I'd know what books still need a replacement, but I'm not that guy anymore. Warhammer The Old World. Now, this I felt was a massive kind of tease and a bit of an upset because from the instant they saw that logo, the instant we saw that logo in the schedule, people were like, "Oh yeah, the Old World is coming. They're going to show off the box with the launch box for the Old World." Like, no. So the Old World is apparently still a long way off, but they've shown us 2 miniatures today in a teaser. Okay, so the Bretonnian Paladin, and then they said in the Twitch stream he's got a head option as well, so you can have him bareheaded, and a Tomb King fella. Okay. So it seems very likely there's going to be an Old World starter box, which is going to be Tomb Kings versus Bretonnians. I guess we can also assume there's going to be some Orcs coming for the Old World as well, because of the Orc head down here. So these 2 models are resin. All the armies going forward to the Old World are apparently going to be a mix of returning plastics, so plastics from Warhammer Fantasy, some new plastics and some resin. The game is set in the Old World, so that doesn't just mean the whole setting the Old World, it means specifically like the sort of pseudo-European bit where the various humans live is where it's set. So if you're not a part of the Old World or you're not invading the Old World at that time, then don't expect massive support. So by which I take it to mean there'll be Wood Elves, but there won't necessarily be a lot of High Elves or Dark Elves, and nor will there necessarily be a lot of Lizard Men. Right, so we'll see. They did say that every 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle Army will be playable, so you can certainly play Lizardmen in the Old World, but I don't know if they're going to necessarily get a whole load of extra stuff. It's interesting that Kislev kind of disappeared from the conversation as well, because I remember Kislev were one of the first sets of things that they previewed like concept art and renders for when it came to the Old World, so we'll have to see about that. So moving on to the Horus Heresy, we've got the plastic Cerastus Knight Lancer. So we kind of knew from good old Chapter Master Valrak that this was coming. It also was on the cover of the Siege of Cathonia book, so another bit of a clue there. I have a resin one of these with the Droopy Lance. So a plastic one's really nice. You'll have a nice kind of erect lance all the time, so that's good. I'm not going to buy a plastic one with having a resin one. I can't justify that, but it's very, very cool. It's slightly weird to me they didn't do the other 2 Cerastus Knights. So there's 2 other sort of weapon variants of these. Maybe they'll come as upgrade packs from Forge World. Maybe they'll remaster the current bodies and do upgrade packs instead. This also means that the Cerastus Knight Lancer is going to get cool rules in 40k, right? If it's a plastic kit that you can buy from Games Workshop, they're absolutely going to give it rules in 40k as well, right? Whereas if it was a Forge World resin kit, it would have been like, well, are they certainly going to do rules for it? We're not quite sure, okay? There's more for the Horus Heresy, though. We're going to look at the Siege of Chthonius. So they talked about the Siege of Chthonius book previously, way back at the Warhammer preview at Adepticon. They talked about that book. It's still not come out. They're now giving us a bit more about the contents of that book. So there'll be 2 new commanders for the Sons of Horus and the Imperial Fists. So they're on the screen there. They also hinted that there's going to be a Loyalist Thousand Sun. They showed this picture of a Loyalist Thousand Sun fighting alongside the Imperial Fists. And they also talked a little bit about Inductee, who are a new unit. I found out for every legion. They showed this picture down here showing the inductee helmet markings for all the legions. And essentially an inductee is marines that were raised up after Istvan. Legions used various methods to speed up the progress, so like increased training, increased kind of hypno-indoctrination. And so it'll be some kind of variant Space Marine unit with different strengths and weaknesses compared to your standard troops. They also said there's going to be more non-Space Marine models soon, so we'll look at that. Roadmap. So this is really mysterious now, as these roadmaps are going. Really very, very mysterious. Spring, we got the Vindicator Siege Tank, and we're going to get Evander Garrus and Varen Ashuradon. These are these 2 characters, right? Now, I assume that also means we're going to get the book very soon. For this, right? The book's not on here, but I assume if they're coming out in resin, we're going to get the book very soon as well. But that didn't fit onto the thing because they're doing plastic versus resin, and a book is made of paper, which is famously not plastic or resin. Then we got the Night Lancer coming in the summer, and just generically some resin characters and upgrades coming as well. And then in autumn, more Lords of War. Don't really know what that's going to be. A Dreadnought, which we've got pretty much sure it's going to be a Derrideo. We'll look at that in a minute. And an armor mark update. It's going to be, I think, a new version of the Mark III armor. And we'll look at why I think that in a minute as well. A new Primarch in resin. So they're going to do a new Ascended Primarch in the same way that they did Horus Ascended. It's probably going to be Rogel Dawn, isn't it? Because they're focusing on their Sons of Horus versus Imperial Fists thing. But I'd be pleasantly surprised if it's someone other than Rogel Dawn. Mystery Army release. I mean, that's probably going to be someone non-human. So it's either going to be like the Demons of the Ruined Storm or potentially the Solar Auxilia. I mean, Solar Auxilia in plastic would be... They would flip and sell. Right, they'd sell to 40k players, they'd sell to diorama makers, they'd sell... Solar Auxiliary in plastic would be an amazing thing. And finally, a plastic assault squad, Mark 6 assault squad for people that collect in Mark 6 for their Heresy army, and some resin characters and upgrades. And then in the spring, we're going to get a plastic command squad and a plastic melee weapons pack, presumably to go alongside the assault squad, right? And some more resin characters and upgrades. So there was just 2 more things that they showed. Well, there was 3 more. I think I've forgotten to make a slide for one, but I'll describe it. So they showed this picture, which basically shows you what look. These are Mark III, but they've given them the funny little spike like the Death Guard have, which is pretty cool. So these will be, basically, if you wanted to describe them this way, and I kind of don't, but it's the best way to describe them, they're going to be like Primaris Mark III. They're going to be Mark III armor, but that's scaled to be the same height as Mark IV. So if you're running Mark 6. So if you're running Mark 6 and you want to include some Mark III, you'll now be able to buy these, and they won't look stupid next to them like your current Mark III arguably does. As somebody that's heavily invested in the older scale of infantry, this release doesn't excite me very much, okay? But it's there for the people who are new to the game, who like the look of Mark III but want it to be taller. And then the Derrideo Dreadnought in the back there, I would say, is the plastic Dreadnought that's going to come as well. And they also showed off the Assault Marines. I just don't like Mark 6. I'm sure they're fine, they're functional. If you want plastic Assault Marines, you're getting some, and it'll please a lot of Blood Angels players in particular. Now, before I move on to the next slide, I want to realise that I've missed something. They did show a very short teaser video, which basically just says, yes, we're doing Epic, right? They're going to do Heresy Epic. They showed a video with Imperial Fist logos on a big screen fighting against Sons of Horus logos, and one of the Imperial Fist logos was in fact an Adeptus Titanicus logo. So yeah, they're bringing out Epic. Epic's going to come at some point. They didn't. It was literally a teaser trailer, but it was just saying, yeah, you've heard we're doing Epic. We're doing Epic. That's that. Right. So what I've done here is I've consolidated the roadmap into, and I've got this pinned on the Discord as well if anybody else wants to look at it. So March, April, May. So we're expecting this month, we got 2-3 release days left this month. We're expecting some stuff for 40k. So the Evander Garrus and the Veshan Shurion, and presumably the book that features their rules. We're expecting that. We're also expecting the Plastic Vindicator and Kill Team Ashes of Faith. Right, so that will finish off this month nicely. And then we've got June, July, August, so the next quarter, leading to the start of the, sort of going through the summer holidays, big quarter for Games Workshop, so we've got the Leviathan box, right, and then alongside that, all the cards, and things, right, so 40k launch. Plastic Knight Lancer, okay, some resin characters and upgrades will come out for 30k. Kill Team kind of parks for a quarter, right? So everything really kind of parks for a quarter to let people really focus on 40k. So we get the individual team releases for Kill Team. So the goats, the dwarves, and the Hand of the Archon will all come out there, and potentially as well the Inquisition that are coming out in the previous quarter for Ashes of Faith. The Kill Team Annual, which I keep telling people, like people keep saying, oh, we're getting annual and getting excited. I expect, I'll be pleasantly surprised if it does, but I don't expect the annual to have any new content in it at all, really. The Warhammer Underworld's Headsmans Curse and the new starter set, the one that's been leaked, and the, no, sorry, that's the Warcry starter set that's been leaked, the Vampires vs Stormcast one. Warhammer Underworld starter set, we don't quite know what that is, but it is going to be a starter set with existing miniatures and a rival deck and the Seraphon Codex, as well as Dawnbringers Book 1 and presumably the 4 miniatures that go with it and a General's Handbook. So a lot of things written down, but not a lot of plastic there because they're really focused on those 3 months of getting Leviathan out the door, as well as the Knight Lancer. Like the Knight Lancer is a proper release as well. Everything else is not that exciting, at least to me. Okay, then we move into the new school year, September, October, November. So 40k Tyranids and Space Marines, right? Really cool. Some kind of Plastic Lord of War for 30k. We don't know what it'll be. Plastic Dreadnought, which we think is the Radio Dreadnought. A Plastic Primaris Mark III, if you like a scaled up Mark III, most likely. And some kind of resin Primarch. So big quarter for 30k there. And we're going to get Kill Team Season 3 Box 1, which I know for everyone on this channel is the thing we're really excited about. A new Warhammer Underworlds Chaos Warband and a new Warhammer Underworlds Core Box. 4 new warbands for Warcry, Order and Destruction, and Cities of Sigmar, and Dawnbringers Book 2 or 3, and presumably that big orc fella on the huge pig that we saw will be coming out alongside Dawnbringers Book 2. Moving into December, January and February, we've got Admech and Necrons for 40k, 30k's Plastic Mystery Army, hopefully Solar Auxilia, but probably not, plus the Assault Squad, some resin characters. We'll be getting another season of Kill Team, Warhammer Underworld's Destruction Warband, Warhammer Underworld's Rivals deck, another season box for Warcry with Order and Death themed, as well as an AOS Mystery Battle Tome and Dawnbringers Book 4. And then in about a year, right, March, April, May, so 9 months to a year, you'll get Codex Dark Angels, Codex Orcs, Codex Custodes, Codex Tau, and Codex Chaos Marines, and they'll all come with models, right? You get the Plastic Legion Command Square, the Plastic Melee Weapon Set, resin upgrades and characters. Kill Team Season Box 3 wasn't actually on the graphic, but it was heavily implied that it's going to continue with the regular release schedule, and some mystery warbands for Warcry. So it's kind of amazing that Games Workshop has given us quite this much information. This takes us basically all the way back up to Warhammer Fest 2024, right? And so that's amazing. You can really plan like, oh, well, I want to pick that up, and I want to pick that up, and I want to pick that up. And I'm sure there'll be more, especially more miniatures releases that are layered on top of here, because we don't know what miniatures are coming with which codexes. But I know, for example, that the Sisters for 40k aren't coming out before Warhammer Fest 2023, right? So I know that, so I can go, well, okay, good. So I don't have to worry about spending a lot of money on 40k, because I've got stuff that I can be building and painting up Once I've got the book and the cards, I'm pretty well set for 40k for the year, right? And I can play my one army and play as many games with that as I want. You know, so useful, really, really useful stuff. Obviously, there's some other things to slot in there. I don't know if we're going to see Epic or, you know, the old world, right? Before next Warhammer Fest. Maybe they're the big releases next Warhammer Fest. Like they finally show the Epic set and the Old World set. Maybe they slot into this somewhere and they just aren't ready to tell us where they slot in. But I still think we've got more information now, more forward thinking, more ability to plan now about Games Workshop releases than we've ever had before. People have been asking this sort of stuff for a very long time. Here it is. Here it is. So I think that's really, really positive. I really genuinely do. Right, I finally made it to the end with this 40-minute video. I've made it to the end of all the Warhammer Fest coverage that I wanted to do. Obviously, I've covered all the kill team reveals in a separate video. That was far more in-depth because this is primarily a kill team channel. I'm curious to know to what extent this other Games Workshop stuff appeals to people on the channel. It's almost inevitable I'll start talking a bit more about 40k. But I'm always curious to hear what other games subscribers to my channel actually play. So do let me know in the comments what you wanted to watch, what were excited about from the previews, and anything that disappointed you from the previews as well. I'll be back tomorrow evening with a hobby stream. So that's Tuesday hobby stream. That always happens, so look forward to that. And the next two projects on the slate are a rundown of the two teams coming in Gallowfall, so those are probably going to come out on Thursday and Saturday, and then we'll see where we are on Sunday with what we get in the Sunday preview, right? Good. Okay. I'm glad that you've enjoyed. If you have enjoyed the video, please press like. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Subscribing is the most important thing that you can do for a tiny channel like mine. Consider joining the Discord. Consider channel membership. Consider all the things, right? Consider them carefully. Alright, thanks everybody. I'll let you get on with the rest of your bank holiday. Have a great day. And bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye.